Check your lunch kit.
Welcome everyone to my little stream. Father, please, mate, try to stop you. Close your mic if your kid's talking. Thank you. Welcome on the stream. Today we're going to have a funny topic. It's going to be a difficult one. It might go really fast. Who knows? We're going to talk about violence and what can we do to prevent violence from happening in our society. Now, I know a lot of people will think this is going to be about gun control. Fair enough. You might think that. But there is more to it than just gun control. In all fairness, we had a terrible thing happening in, where was it? California? School got shot up. No, not California, Florida. It's terrible. Blah, blah, blah. Terrible for the people that died, don't get me wrong. But somehow it has become a talking point and somehow it has to be politicized.
Well, doesn't everything have to be politicized?
Well, maybe, I don't know. But is it because of guns that we see this sort of violence?
It doesn't hurt. It makes it easier.
Guns make it easier, perhaps.
You know, you can't go and shoot up a school if you haven't got guns, which is why you don't get school shootings in the UK, for instance.
Well, not anymore.
I disagree. I disagree with that statement. I only heard half of them. Half of it. What I heard was you don't get school shootings if you don't got guns.
Yeah.
You know what? Isn't this one of the very first school shootings where the guns were acquired legally?
Yeah, but you still have to have the guns to get them illegally.
Okay, we stop all sales to guns. This is the problem I have with this whole gun control debate.
Hey, I'm not
Let's say we stop
because I'm British and we don't have guns. That's my point. But that wasn't the question.
Well, no, I'm Canadian. We got guns. We just don't talk about them. But we're pretty much the same as British rule on this. Here's the thing. You know what? Let's cease all sales of any new guns. That would be a good gun control, right?
No.
Not particularly. Or
not no
necessarily.
New guns, no new shootings.
No, it doesn't work like that.
But there are still guns in the world, and the guns are a tool. So to pretend that removing the tool will pretend to move the... sorry.
Put it this way. It's illegal to sell cocaine in the U.S., but it still gets sold.
Well, not just in the U.S.
If you make guns illegal, they will still be sold in the U.S. and they will probably still be commonplace. It would just not be legal to do so.
Probably would be less common. Law-abiding citizens, for one, wouldn't have them.
I think St. Clair was going to the same point that I had. Is already we have enough guns in North America to sustain our population. Boo-hoo, we want more. Pretend that I'm still American. That's the right that we got, is to have more guns. Now, at what point should we have gun control? And at what point are we willing to give up the Second Amendment right to have gun control?
Okay, I'm going to interrupt here. It's a good question. We will come back to it later. But the topic is not about gun control. The topic is how can we prevent violence?
Teach our kids to eat more Tide Pods.
Teach our kids to eat more. Yeah, mate, if you want to teach that to your kid, hey, Godspeed. But
no, I'll teach it to the neighbor's kids, not my own.
So it's not that good an idea, because in that case, you're talking about violence already.
Is it really violence when they do it to themselves?
It is violence when you coerce them to do it to themselves. It's not their action that is violence, it's your coercion.
Now you're sounding like my girlfriend.
Marcel is saying diagnose sociopathic behavior at an early age. I know sociopathy and psychopathy are a problem, but most people that commit crimes do not definitely fall under one of these two categories. And therein lies the problem. What can we do to prevent violence when violence is so very much part of our biology? It's not even part of our culture. It's part of our biology.
But here's the thing, though, Modwain.
I think, how about people take up self-defense? And also, where's Carlos?
Carlos couldn't make it today.
Sorry.
Well, no, I mean,
I actually got it. I'm gonna make myself cringe on this one, but the older I get, the more I'm actually believing this, and that has to do with like realistic violence in video games and desensitizing our children at a young age.
Okay. I'll come back to
it was
that in a
those
moment.
Tom and Jerry cartoons from when I
Yeah.
was a kid.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
indeed.
like
No,
it's
no,
not.
no. Father, we come back to this in a moment because John wanted to say something else
Yeah,
too.
well,
let's
the first
stay
thing
on
I
this
would like
topic
to
for a
say
moment.
first thing I'd like to say is one thing is the you can't just say violence, because what people will do as in a rage as an individual is not the same as somebody doing a planned action of assault, whether
Yeah.
it's to kill people in a school, or to mow down people because they're infidels and you want to go to heaven, or any of these things. That you can't compare the two.
I have a question to ask, Futternut. Does the game of chess desensitize people to killing and taking their land?
No.
Because that's absurd, right?
It is absurd, and there's two different ways to look at that. Like Modwain said, let's let John talk, but I would actually like to come back to that as well.
Yeah, we'll revisit this topic as well. We will.
So the other point is in his book Better Angels of Our Nature, published, was it maybe 10 years ago, Steven Pinker has shown that consistently we are becoming less violent as societies, or were, until recent immigration changes have fundamentally reversed those trends. So it was happening anyway, but you will never get to zero, which is what I was saying about the two different types of violence.
Well, in all fairness, this is correct, or at least this is what we can see in our society. We see, how do you call it? It's like a wave. We see an increase in violence, we see a decrease in violence. And the lower violence will get on that curve, the more peaceful the society gets, the more, how do you call it? Susceptible it is to invasion or disintegration. We've had 20 years of peace, roughly. And then 10 years ago, violence started increasing drastically within the Western world. Not America, not England, but the Western world. So what happened roughly 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Something that has been happening for a while. But let's go back to the simple of the question. How can we prevent violence?
Is there really a way to prevent it?
Well, there was a way to prevent it because we have seen a decline in violence. So something stopped us from being violent.
I think that what we could just do when it comes to violence is just practice self-defense, because, I mean, it dissuades people from attacking if they believe that there's going to be consequences.
I disagree
That's
with
right.
that.
I think she's right. But go ahead.
I know she's
No,
right.
I think that you end up with two essentially alpha males going, "Oh, well, I took self-defense. I took self-defense. Who can defend each other better?"
Fair enough, but in fact, she is correct.
But I think, you will have that. But what you will also have is less violence in general, because those alpha males will be going at each other regardless of the circumstances of their actual ability to defend themselves, because that's a personality issue. It's not an issue of how strong they are. In general, if everybody knows that everybody has the capability of defending themselves, violence will go down.
This is in fact true. This is the whole concept of mutual destruction. No one is interested in a war if you know the outcome will be the destruction of both participants. Now, this sounds exaggerated, but politics on a global level and politics on a local level are basically the same. When you have mutual destruction, the only one willing to start a fight is the one who doesn't care whether he lives or dies. But on average, people care. There are, of course, a few cultures where they don't, but that's part of the topic, but not the real issue. The thing is, I don't think we can have a society without violence. I think it is impossible.
I agree.
Literally impossible to have a society without violence.
I also agree.
I agree as well.
In all fairness, the fact that in the Western society, on average, people don't attack each other is because we have created a system where violence is more or less taken over by the state. It's doing the violence for us.
Well, the threat of being caught and tried by the state and punished by the state really stops people from trying to commit violence to others, because the punishment is greater than any reward they could get from attacking somebody.
Yes, and that
basically
is why I'm not a criminal.
Which is basically the same idea of mutual destruction. If I do something to you, I might lose myself in the game. Now, the more stable a society is, the more people will recognize that violence in itself serves no purpose. I mean, I think all of you have seen an image talking about how strong men create good times, weak men create... good times create weak men create rough times. If you haven't, I need to look it up for a second. This is the whole concept of how culture and violence goes in a wave. There need to be people that create. Okay, here we go. There we go. There need to be people who work hard to create a stable society. And once that society is there, then people live off that society, which in event starts to slowly weaken the society. And then the weaker a society gets, the more aggressive a society gets towards each other and towards others. And once that point is reached, you get a lot of strong men again, because they need to fight. You need to fight to survive. Where is this image? There's this image. I hope you can see this now. This is one of the many versions of it. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create bad times.
So it's a cycle then.
But it is a cycle. And the only way to prevent this cycle from happening is by recognizing it and actually stay strong. Force yourself to stay strong.
What if it's actually impossible to prevent the cycle, that the best you can do is just to prolong it?
What do you mean?
At that point, what's the point?
No. I'm asking my question again. What do you mean, what if?
What if the truth is that the cycle cannot be prevented from happening? That it is inevitable that good times create weak men, which will create bad times.
But the cycle is inevitable.
So there is no...
There is one thing we can do about it. But the thing we can do about it is keep reminding ourselves, learning from our history. But eventually there will be a time when learning from our history no longer serves a purpose for some of our population or populace or politicians. And then learning from our history is considered a negative thing. They change our history. We see this happening time and again.
Or we don't teach it at all.
We do live in a good time, but how many Americans want to go out and fights, like against, I don't know, the Muslims or whatnot. I mean, we do talk about stories like how in Sweden, how like Muslim men would rape other people and people would just go about their daily lives, or sometimes they want the Muslim men to stay. Like, I don't want this guy who raped me to get sent back to his country. Yeah, because the Muslim lives in a third world country. He doesn't care, He'll just
But
go and
then you create a situation where good times have created weak men. You're not willing to defend what you have created. This is the thing. Can we prevent violence? No, we cannot. Violence is inevitable. Either it is used to prevent excesses of violence, or they are excesses of violence. Those are the two options. Hi there, Square Peg, and hi there, Real Raven, by the way. You just popped in. The thing with violence, and I specifically use the word violence. I didn't use gun violence. I didn't use terrorism, etc., etc. I specifically use violence because violence is 100% inevitable in our society.
I will say that it is true that the West has fallen and gotten back up no less than 5 times in the past 4,200 years.
Yep. This is true for nearly every...
The West hasn't been around for 4,200 years.
Yeah, it has, mate.
Well, I'm referring to the Middle East as being part of the West, and
it used to be, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Not anymore, though. Not for about 1,400 years. But the Middle East used to be part of the West. The Western culture goes back a long, long way. I mean, one could even say that before the Greeks, you had
Egypt.
Hammurabi. Egypt was after Hammurabi, if I'm not mistaken. And
no, yes and no. It was, Egypt and Mesopotamia flourished simultaneously.
True.
Yes. Hammurabi was alive during the Middle Kingdom, I believe.
But if we look at our current society, and Hammurabi and Egypt did have a lot of things in common. They weren't perfectly aligned, to be honest, but they had a line of common. And what we consider now in Western society as the basis of our, social cohesion, the laws we use, in all fairness, we already know that Hammurabi's Mesopotamia had a lot of these rules already. Now, funny enough that a lot of these rules don't seem to be living in the Middle East and in North Africa anymore, but they still live, the concepts still live in our Western world. The thing is, with violence, everyone knows this saying, violence begets violence. What a lot of people seem to forget about the saying violence begets violence is that there will be violence anyway. You not being violent will not stop someone from being violent toward you.
That's true, but my question is, what do you do with somebody, a radical Muslim, who isn't afraid to kill themselves by running into a building? I mean, they don't even care about their own lives, which is scary.
Yeah. You know why? You know what the main reason is why America didn't defeat the Viet Cong? Anyone dare to wager on this one?
Yeah, because Americans were afraid to die. The Viet Cong weren't.
I wouldn't say
it's not something that I want to put them on a pedestal for, but it is something that's true. It's the same as if there wasn't an atom bomb. Guess what? The U.S. would still be at war with Japan.
Yeah.
Japan was sitting there willing to have every one of their able-bodied citizens die for them.
And we have seen several cultures in the past that were like that. In fact, there is some truth to what you said. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sinclair.
I forgot what I was going to say. I apologize.
That's okay. No, I don't. I'm not going to say that Americans were afraid to die in Vietnam. I mean, I really don't think that's the case. But the Viet Cong seriously had no quarrel with dying because they wanted freedom, and there were two ways of getting that.
No, Viet Cong
Winning it or
wasn't freedom.
dying.
Viet Cong was the communist state.
I know, but in their mind, it was freedom. I'm not saying they were correct, but in their mind, it was freedom. And indeed, as Marshall said, the VC were willing to die for their country. And a lot of people seem to not understand this anymore. Just like Muslims are willing to die for their faith. What's stopping us to be willing to put it all on a line? Because by not doing that, by pretending that we can stop people from being violent towards us, we're only opening ourselves up for more violence. I mean, if we take the gun violence thing, most of the mass shootings at schools happened since guns were no longer allowed to be near schools. In the period before that, there were far less mass shootings.
Well, no, I've been doing a little bit. I'm no expert whatsoever on this, but I've been doing a little bit of research. And the very first school shooting was in the 70s.
Yeah, you had more school shootings.
Like, I don't say let's make schools a gun welcome zone. But at the same time, when I look at the last shooting here, I don't see much other than things that were already in place that could have been done to prevent it. The only thing that I can see to prevent the Florida shooting was our officials doing their job. If our officials did their job, the shooting wouldn't have happened.
That's a different story, but I think you are correct in that. I mean, the signs were
no one's
there.
talking about that story. That's
not interesting, because the only people who talk about it are talking about it because they want to give another reason to prevent guns. But guns are not the issue. But they want to make it about guns. How do I know guns are not the issue? Because you never hear them talking about Detroit or the murder rate in Washington or the murder rate in Chicago.
Like something I was thinking about, like I saw like a meme going around like Twitter where it was talking about how like they took away all the guns in like Venezuela, but like multiple of the people died in Venezuela because the government had all the guns.
Well, this is something that the founding fathers of America considered. This is why you have the right to bear arms in America. It's not to defend yourself from foreign aggressors, but it's also to defend yourself from your government, which is a little bit double because the American army will obviously run over every state that wants to fight them, but the concept is still there. You have your guns to defend yourself against tyrants.
No, it did, but like from what a friend told me that there is like only like one gun store in all of Mexico, but they have like a problem with the drug war, like with the Mexican drug cartels, because they're the ones that had all the guns, and the innocent people can't get guns.
Okay, it's along the lines. I'll explain that to you. That's along the lines of having one legally allowed cocaine and meth store. Guess what? If you have one store in your entire country to sell cocaine and meth from legally, it's going to be a really booming business. But it's not going to take fuck all out of all the illegal drug dealers. Mexico is probably one of the worst places to make comparison on.
Why is Mexico one of the worst places to take a comparison on that?
Because what she says is absolutely correct. There is only one real gun store in Mexico.
So
in the entire country.
So how is her example a bad one?
Because just because you have one legal outlet doesn't... One legal outlet. You're in Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Netherlands is at least 500 kilometers wide in some area.
Okay.
Now, guess what? You could go drive 500 kilometers to your legal outlet for that, or you could go 5 miles and buy the exact same thing for 10% more.
Yeah, but
what are you going to do?
No, the question is not what am I going to do. The question is why do you say the example given by Rin isn't the correct one?
Because we're not talking about legalities of stuff.
No, we're not talking about legalities. And
I've actually kind of got off fucking topic.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but this is also not about the legality. The point that I take out of this is that even they only have one legal place to buy it, they are still buying things. They are still committed to violence. Am I misunderstanding you on this, Rin?
No, you're not.
So the problem is not that the weapon is the problem is that as a species, we are committed to violence.
Howdy, everyone.
Hey, Ramblings. Sorry, mate. I should have. I don't really use the YouTube. I don't use the Skype thingy that much anymore, which is stupid. So therefore, I forgot sending you. I just send all the things over Twitter nowadays. It's
yeah, you guys start using Skype more. Although I never check it. Every time I want to get
tried to call you 4 or 5 times.
Was that after I sent you the message on Twitter or not? I came home for my girlfriend's there yesterday, and I saw that I had all these missed calls for Modwain, and I was like, is that new, or is that when that guy was worried about me?
Listen, last Wednesday, you basically, you were talking, and you said, no, you know what, call me when you're done here. So I did. You didn't pick up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, then I was worried. That's okay, though.
Yeah, no, I never meant to make you worry, man.
No, that's okay.
I never would. I was in a sad state, and I just I dealt with it.
Good.
Well, you're in a better state now, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I talked to Reading Rainbow, the children's cartoon, by mistake, and everything's good now.
Anyway, back to the topic. If we look, for example, gun violence, and I don't want to hang around gun violence because, in all fairness, it's not about gun violence. But what we see is that guns make violence easier, so people are willing to spend time and extra money to get guns. The example of Mexico in this is a great one. I mean, the country is a shithole, and I know people won't like me for saying that, but I'm sorry it is. How come there are so many guns there? Because people buy them. Simple as that. Whether it's legally or illegally.
The man with the biggest penis always wins, and it doesn't have to be a penis. You know what? I just saw a video of a 50 cal bullpup semi-auto gun getting fired from a fucking hip fire position. I'll be honest, that gave me a chubby.
But the thing is,
I think that's more your problem than people who own guns.
No, I think almost anybody that watches that video will get a little bit of a chubby off that, because you got enough fucking firepower. You're a World War Tank 1.
Look, man.
World War I tank level.
You know what?
Hold on, wait.
I think Freud would have had a field day with you, man.
Look, man. Look. Speaking as American, just because you're a bullpup chump, you don't need to spread that over here. I don't get stiff for anything less than an M60.
But in all fairness, I'm going to interrupt everyone again because I do want to try to keep on topic.
Yes, I do too. Because this is a topic that interests me.
This is not about gun violence. This is about violence. In all fairness, if we look at America, yes, you had mass shootings, but not all mass killings were shootings. If we look at Europe, yes, we had mass killings. Not all of them were shootings. We did have shootings here. We have seen the rise in vehicular manslaughter, as it's nicely called. We've seen a rise in knife crime, for example, in Great Britain.
Well,
Acid attacks.
you can't really get a gun very easily in Great Britain, so you're leaving them open to using a lot of other methods, which arguably create a lot more.
Well, the question is not whether it creates more
problems.
The question is not whether it creates.
Yeah,
more
but
problems.
I'd take our situation over America's.
I'm going to bring something up here. Rather than talking about guns, rather than talking about how many people died in a country, do we really have a violence issue? Do we have a violence problem in any of the Western world?
I don't know. How many Muslim people are in the Western world?
No. It's not even about Muslim people, even though I don't like Islam either. I don't think it's about Muslim people.
No, Muslim people are not inherently violent, but I was just kind of making a snide jab at all the issues going on in Europe at the moment.
Yeah, but the problem is the world will always be violence because you can never erase violence.
And that's
should we erase violence, though?
Can we erase violence? The question
can you reprogram instinct at the basic level? No.
No, you can't. Therefore, you will always have violence. So, what can we
try?
We have tried. The makeable society does not exist. We've been trying it for so long. It's a joke that there are still people out there who believe this bullshit.
Look, what
can we do? So how can we prevent violence? This is the main thing. It's not about gun control, because as Rin so rightly pointed out, people will go a long way to still get guns, even if it's illegal. It's not against. Well, if it's not about gun control, then it's not about weapon control, because. So what can we do? We can't erase violence. What can we do to prevent violence?
This is probably
Should we prevent violence?
This is probably the best topic for me to say this, because I've always wanted to say this in a debate about violence in general. But you want to know how you get rid of negative violence? And I can't believe I'm saying this, but you replace it with positive violence.
Oh no, that's not weird at all.
Well, it's a weird way of saying it, because violence has a negative connotation to it, especially over here. When you say violence, you're usually thinking of, beating the snot out of someone getting hit with a car, beating someone down with a baseball bat. That's usually what the connotation is. But in general, what you want to do is you want to stop repressing the aggressive nature that humans have and start using it in a more positive light. We need more. I want to almost say
punching of Nazis.
No. We need. This
Self-defense. You mean?
This is the weirdest way to say it, but we need more people in boxing. We need more people in sports like martial arts. We need more people to play football. We need more people to play contact sports. We need more people. We need more ways for people to get their aggression out without actually causing permanent harm. But the problem is you're never going to skirt permanent harm no matter what you do, because there's always that issue of risk. And society nowadays has basically pushed everyone under the age of like 30 into this mindset of, if it's risky, it's bad. If you can get hurt, it's bad. You're not supposed to do this. This is why we don't have dodgeball anymore. This is why we repress sports that try to hurt people. This is why kids aren't allowed to play tag. This is why we stop boys who are shoving each other in the backyard when they're playing around aggressively, because we don't like aggressive actions. We don't see that these can have positive influences on people. And it's disgusting.
They're totally positive influences. Like, I know my kids don't have dodgeball in school no more.
They should.
But guaranteed, I've beat half the fucking kids in the neighborhood with a ball in the face.
Well, the thing
is,
they
found it fun, the exact same way I did.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Smashing balls into each other's faces, and it prevented broken windows. It prevented whining.
Well, when you when you shove everyone into this, nothing's wrong with it, honestly, if you want my opinion, but every overprotective mother can't stand to see little Billy with a stubbed toe and a bruised back, God forbid, comes home aching after a hard day's play. But
hey, I got universal health care. As long as my kid's not fucking eating antibiotics, we're good.
Either way.
So, sorry, Rumbling, can I just interject a minute?
Oh, yeah, sure, no problem.
The irony is the very same forces that are doing exactly what you're saying in schools are also responsible for a parallel increase in violence by othering. So that it's the same force that creates Antifa and its willingness to go out and hit people with bike locks.
It seems that people are willing to grasp onto anything to identify with so that they can attack other people.
No, but it's othering.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that we have a force which on the one hand is saying, oh, we can't have boys be aggressive, but on the other hand, teachers, political activists to be aggressive at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Because
it's
it's
not
both-
actually net reducing violence, it's just displacing it.
Yeah. It's using violence. Violence in itself is bad, but if we use it, we do it for good, therefore it's allowed.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking something about violence. Like when it comes to the people who are naturally aggressive and they love to get in fights, why not to just legalize certain fights clubs so that it could be at least away from the neighborhoods? And if people want to engage with it, they can if they both give their consent.
Because we've
Well,
raised a fucking society of pansy-ass motherfuckers who can't take a punch without fucking crying.
Yes.
There are not,
you know
there is
what?
not a single parent alive today who is under the age of 30 who will let their kid actually get into a physical altercation without going to the school or going to the other person's parents or going to someone and threatening a goddamn lawsuit. We
Wait
live
a
in a
minute.
society that suppresses everything.
Rambling.
Not ramblings. That's not new.
No,
I'm not under 30 no more, but when my child was in kindergarten, the first time that I encountered a physical altercation with the school, my child got suspended. And I was like, why? Apparently, my kindergartner daughter fucking smoked a grade 3 student. I wasn't happy about it until I ignored what the school had to say, took her into the office. I'm like, well, no, we need your side of the story to this. You could be in trouble. You could not be in trouble. It doesn't really matter. We need your side of the story. And her side of the story matched the other two kids of, oh, this grade 3er was picking on another kindergartner. And my kid decided to frickin' smoke this grade 3er in the nose. My kindergarten child got suspended for violence in school. Do you know what else she got? She got fucking dinner out with 2 desserts. Because quite frankly, I think that is the way that we should have our children.
And I wanted to say something what Ramblings also said. Not so long ago, I was at preschool for my little boy. But there is also a school in that complex, a basic school. And we basically see a group of boys being rowdy, I guess you would say. And at some point, the situation didn't get out of hand yet, but it seemed it might go out of hand. There was no beating yet, but the boy that was basically against the wall didn't like it anymore. Now, the reaction of the teacher, our teacher, because we've seen it through the window, was like, yeah, sometimes I'm going outside because the teachers that are sitting there and standing there looking cannot see everything. And I'm like, but maybe they see it and they see what's happening, and they should actually just wait a little and see how it gets solved, because to be honest, it wasn't bad yet, but that boy who didn't like it anymore should be given a chance, and the rest of the boys, to come up with the solution to the situations. Now, I'm not saying that you basically see children beating crap of the kid and just doing nothing. This is not what I'm saying, but I have a feeling that we are indeed too fast to react to it, to stop it. And that's how you get, in a way, weak people in the future. And weak people might be more aggressive. Or didn't make any sense?
No,
Also,
what you just said makes a lot of sense.
Also, what I was thinking is that people could learn better problem-solving skills. I mean, sure, people should, get their aggression out, but still, I think that people should get better problem-solving skills as well as getting their aggression out.
And I think I agree. And I'm asking myself, Rin, I have a feeling with the parents that surround me when I was working with the children that we are preventing our children in many situations from getting upset to protect them. And it goes from, intervening too fast when we think there is fight about to be a fight, to even the situations when I see parents when the kids is like 2-year-old or 4-year-old and playing with some puzzles or whatever, and they have a problem, and they already helping because otherwise it doesn't work out and the kid gets upset. And it happens a few times that I've seen children of a parents who had like a few children. So I've seen them doing that to 3-year-olds, but they already had a 7-year-old. And I only can assume that they basically were kind of the same to the 7-year-olds. And the 7-year-old is just a runaway drama queen because he didn't indeed learn to ask for help, and he didn't really learn to think, okay, I need to solve the problem. How am I going to solve it? It's just giving the children everything on the golden plate, basically, just so they don't get upset. I don't know if it makes any sense to you guys, but yeah, this is basically the feeling I have.
Yeah, kids need to be taught problem-solving skills, And it would be better. It would be better if more people had problem-solving skills, because you do see trauma in the workplace as well.
It's more than just learning to have problem-solving skills. We need to teach our kids, but also our adults, I guess, that actions have consequences. Every action has a consequence.
You could do that too.
And if we're going to say, yeah, but we don't allow violence, well, the consequence of not allowing violence or not giving violence a chance to be is that it will find its own way. And then you will find that you will have people who are perfectly willing to commit violence, but no one is able to stop them, because the ones that aren't willing to commit violence will not be able to stop those that are.
Yeah, and people are naturally aggressive, so I think that people should just let that aggression out in healthier ways.
Well, I got a question. Should we be trying to solve the violence issue?
We should.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because
I think that we can all see that us as humans have never been so safe in the history of humanity.
True that.
Why should we be trying to solve the violence?
Our current society is slightly being destroyed from within. And the problem is that we, as Western people, are being told how violence is bad. Yet we import people who do not agree with us on that. They use violence. We cannot answer their violence. Therefore, we see, for example, in Sweden or in Germany, the rise of violent crime, and no one is actually doing anything about it other than opening the borders even wider so this can continue. We have lost the
by us.
One moment.
And like, if you try to speak out on it, people would say, Islamophobia, or that's racist.
Racist. I'm not even going to go into the Islam bit, but the racist bit, yes, that's always going to be thrown out, no matter what. The thing is, if we are in a society where we consider that violence is a very bad thing, and therefore it shouldn't be allowed, which is perfectly understandable, I'm 100% on board with that one, then we also create a society where people are not able to counter violence. And once you have that society, you are vulnerable to whomever comes in and brings violence. brings violence, or whomever is inside and bring violence. We cannot answer that violence because we have basically numbed ourselves.
Yeah.
If I may, there is something to be said that too much violence causes issues as well.
Oh, definitely.
And I mean, it seems like that would be an obvious one, but compared to what I was saying earlier, I would just like to specify that lots of infighting creates stagnation, and there's probably no more big an example of that than Sengoku Jidai Japan, where all the tribes were fighting so much amongst each other that nothing got done. You only see Japan start to evolve into what it is now when they started to cooperate.
Okay, why do you go back to Japan? Why can't we stay in our current situation? Why can't we look at cities like Saudi Arabia? Why can't we look at cities like Sudan? Why can't we look at cities like countries like
because
Somalia?
Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and you can look at modern day Middle East with all the infighting amongst all the different factions. I'm just using one example, Modwain. You can't go, no, even Africa, if I'm just pointing at one country an example.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not saying it's not in Africa. I'm just saying it's here because this fits the example. Now, all the infighting amongst all the different groups in the Islamist nations in the Middle East can be compared to Sengoku Jidai just as easily, because they're all a bunch of different cultural groups that are all bound together by different cultural ties that are fighting for dominance in one specific area.
Mm-hmm.
I think
the only way that they see to do this is by wiping everything out.
Just to interrupt here, John the Bereaved or whatever, he actually calls it right now. Violence is too vague of a term. It needs to be clarified. Given that there is interpersonal violence, which is completely different than political ideological violence. Now, I don't completely agree with that term, but the part that I say is violence is way too vague of a term for us to have a good discussion on.
I disagree with
that. Peg this down a little bit and isolate it a little bit more, and then at that time we can take in another term.
Yeah, I disagree with that, and I'll explain to you why. If we have a talk about gun violence, for example.
There's only one.
So are we only talking about gun violence? No, we're not only talking about gun violence. Are we only going to talk about people creating violence when going out into what do you call it? Discos. You don't call it discos nowadays, but you know what I mean. Or we talk about hooligan violence against other hooligans. All of these things combined have one thing in common. And that's violence. If we're talking about domestic violence, it's violence. All these things have one thing in common, and that's violence. All of these things come back to the same problem. Now, we can specify it, and we can talk about gun violence and knife violence and acid violence and all sorts of things. But all we're doing then is we're creating a fake issue. We're pretending that there is difference between these violences, but there isn't really. The end result is the same. They all need to be addressed. And
at that point, it sounds like what we should be discussing is the motives behind the violence.
Well, it's Islam and didn't have like closed borders, I don't see the points of open borders in Europe or the US.
Touchy subject.
But that's the thing, though. I mean, how are we going to prevent violence from happening? What can we do to prevent violence? And yes, there are lots of things.
I guess the question comes down to what about justifiable violence?
Again.
Or how is violence justified?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
But self-defense, like if somebody.
No, guys, what you're trying to do now is trying to find reasons why violence is acceptable. I'm not arguing that violence has its positive and its negative moments. If we're going to talk about how we're going to prevent violence. We need to be able to look at all of this violence as the same. Because it's stupid to say, well, if you have a gun and you shoot at a person, you're violent. But when a police does it, he is enforcing the law, which is completely correct, but he's also being violent. So you have to put it all together, because as soon as you start saying, well, yeah, this, yes, but that, no, then you're already trying to compartmentalize the problem. You're making the problem intersectional.
Well, there are different types of violence. There's positive violence and there's negative violence.
I'm not saying
there's a difference between using violence to save others and help others. And
I'm not saying that there isn't a difference. I'm not saying that there isn't a difference. But, and I'm
what
not saying
is we should discuss it all together.
It's one thing.
Idea.
Because if we say, okay, you can use violence in this moment, but you cannot use violence in that moment, then basically you're saying Antifa is correct when they say, well, yeah, but we have to punch Nazis. Because in their mindset, this is completely justified. And as soon as you create a situation...
What do you mean by have to?
As soon as you
the right thing to do, morally correct.
As soon as you create a situation where you can have excuses for violence for one, but not for the other, you're creating an instability in the system, an inequality within the system, which will eventually turn violence higher.
I don't think so, because the police are supposed to help us.
I'm not saying the police aren't supposed to help us.
Here's a question. Here's another question. So we're all in agreement that the world is a lot less violent than it was 100 years ago, right?
Absolutely.
100 years ago was World War I, so definitely.
Should we
I don't know, man. World War I wasn't that violent. I mean, have you seen Tumblr lately? Yeah, I'm kidding.
Well, it's true, though. I mean, there are more people dying today than they did during World War I, but then again, there are also more people.
World War I was a very, very tragic experience for all involved.
Well, no, what I'm wondering is, although we see violence as an issue, is it something that we should even be tackling?
Oh, yeah,
is it our biggest issue? Is it like, I'm sorry, when I look at it, I don't see how this is our biggest issue. Because once a year there is some sort of dramatic event that
no. You're
make
talking
our societies cry.
No,
this should be our biggest fucking issue that we tackle.
No. You're absolutely misunderstanding the point. This is not about a school shooting.
Okay, let me see if I can put two and two together. You're saying that we should discuss all violence as a whole, right? Both good and bad, whether it's whatever it is. You're saying we should discuss this as a whole. And you're saying that this discussion should be how we should reduce violence, period.
No,
good, bad, whatever, right? No?
No, I'm not saying we should reduce violence. I'm saying how can we prevent? And maybe we need to recognize that in certain situations, violence cannot be prevented. Therefore, then we need an ability to counter violence.
How do you counter violence without violence? And
who's saying to do it without violence?
How do you? How do you counter violence without violence?
But who's saying to counter it without violence? This is the problem that we get from the left, where they keep talking about how guns need to be taken down, how the police need to be taken down, how we need to be opening borders so that other people can come in, how we need to recognize how we are privileged and they are poor victims. This all is also violence.
Well, you have to meet a force with a force of your own that's equal or greater if you expect to win.
It's not even about expecting to win. It's about expecting to stand.
I would
It's not
consider
even-
that. I would consider that a victory, just in my vernacular of how I view things. Like
Yep.
surviving is winning.
But that's then the problem.
I need to drink more because this is now getting really confusing.
The thing is that we keep talking about violence as this purely negative thing.
It's
But who's-
not.
That's what I'm saying.
Not
It's not.
purely
We
negative.
also think most of us, Modwain, also think of violence as a purely physical thing.
Which it's also not.
Violence is the most of the violence
Yeah.
I've experienced in my life is actually emotional.
Most violence is emotional, indeed. Even physical violence is often more painfully emotional than physical.
Well, yeah, because when you're beat up, or when you get beat up by the bully, like the pain hurts after the pain stops hurting after like a week, but you're thinking about it for months afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'd love to argue that, but to be honest, no. I can't.
Well, that's the thing. Violence is far more than just hurting someone physically. Emotional violence is a huge problem. I mean, 90% of psychological health
But at
care
the same time, doesn't that emotional violence make us who we are as adults? Like, am I the only one that was ever abused? Like,
it can have a severe impact on your psychology if that's what you mean.
Yeah, but severe impact. Like, I'm sorry, I was bullied more than almost anybody that I ever knew. I'm actually friends with a few of the people that used to bully me in school. And they say, you know what? You were the most bullied kid that we've ever fucking met. Now, is that really a bad thing? Because if I wasn't bullied, I'd probably work at fucking McDonald's for minimum wage and be happy with that.
I think that my philosophy and my outlook on life is definitely enriched by the fact that I was beaten and raped as a child.
Well, it changed who. It changed what happened, and it changed who you are, and it's definitely part of who you are. But is it the only way to be who you are? Is it the only thing? And if these things happen to you, should you not have someone there to be able to protect you if you can't protect yourself?
No, you should never always have a safety blanket.
No, I'm not saying
if
you should always have a safety blanket.
You just said it. You should have somebody there to protect you.
But
he was asking, not telling. He was asking, not telling.
Listen, I don't think that creating a system where there are people on gun towers everywhere to keep us safe will ever be a solution.
I think
because
the
that
solution
in itself will be violence too.
That's a tough question. That's a very tough question.
In the end, we as individuals are responsible for our environment. Are we on agreement on this?
Yes.
I don't know. I kind of pray to Sky Daddy and hope that he fixes my breakfast in the morning.
How's that working out?
The only person that's ever going to solve my fucking problems is me.
I still have to get out of bed and do it myself, but you know what? Screw it. Yeah.
I believe that
obviously I agree.
I believe that the individual plays a very small role in their environment, but I believe they do play a role.
Well, obviously you play a small role.
The individual is the only person that can control their environment.
No, you can exert control over your environment, but you cannot control your environment.
If the individual could control their environment, prisons would not exist.
No, the individual can control their environment. It just depends on how much effort they want to put in.
If I could control my
environment, you know what?
I
I used to be around crackheads entirely. And I could say, oh, I don't have control. These are my friends. And they're such good people. You know what? If I'm living with crackheads, I'm a crackhead. It doesn't matter if I fucking touch the rock or not.
I can't.
It's up to me to control that and say, hey, you know what?
No. You're not controlling your environment then. You're controlling yourself. And it is up to you to control yourself. But it's not
control yourself is to control your environment, though.
No, it isn't.
How not?
Okay, so you're living in an area with a lot of crackheads. You move out of the area.
No, you don't even have to move out. Just stop associating with the crackheads.
That's not controlling your environment. That's trolling your environment.
But
no,
okay, so,
if you're living with crackheads, if you're living in an area that's like, say I was living in Detroit.
Oh, well, there's your problem.
Now, you know what? Say I want to put the effort in. I'll travel a fucking hour away to go to Flint or wherever the fuck I want to go.
You go to Flint, Michigan.
Environment. I am controlling my environment, and I think that every one of us has that ability.
Yeah,
you're not controlling the environment.
You're driving from the murder capital of the state to the worst water in the state.
No. The example isn't that important, but you're not controlling your environment. You're controlling yourself within the environment. The environment itself isn't changing. Detroit didn't change because you left.
You left because Detroit wouldn't change.
Do you understand the difference in this? Because this is the most important part. We have only the ability to exert control in our environment, but we have no ability to control our environment. This is why authoritarians want...
Okay, fine. I live in Detroit. I am sick of fucking my brothers murdering my brothers.
Yeah.
I run for political office. I bring in positive action. What's that whole thing that all the blacks are against?
You lose your run for political office.
Or something? Where they make ugly places look nice again.
Look, we don't elect filthy Canadians, so I'm just going to rip this off the rails right here. Even if you did win this election, you would only have minimal control over the environment, more so than the individuals who live there. Because you do not have absolute control over the environment. You cannot 100% stop everyone from doing what they do in that city.
Even as politicians, you will be limited. But you can try to become authoritarian and force people to do what you want. But in that case, you're just using violence to change the system.
And we had a name for a man like that. His name was Hitler?
No, actually, we had many of them, but yeah.
Hitler actually wasn't that bad, other than the fact that he was like the Henry Ford of genocide.
Oh my God, Hitler was an idiot. He really was.
No, I'm not saying Hitler did anything. Well, no, Hitler did a lot of good. But I'm not saying Hitler wasn't a bad guy.
Let me finish that thought for you. I'm not saying Hitler did anything
Hitler
wrong.
is he was the Henry Ford of genocide.
No, he wasn't, because he wasn't the biggest causer of genocide either. I mean, people portray Hitler as the worst person in history. He's not. But that he's a bad person is also beyond contention.
The worst person in history was Richimer.
No, it's clearly Gandhi.
No, Gandhi wasn't bad. Well, he did.
Richimer was a fucking evil man.
Yeah, but Gandhi's a nuke-mongering war machine.
No, when you get down to it, it's either Mao or Stalin that were the worst people in history.
No.
In modern history.
I can honestly say I do not know enough to know who is the worst person in history, but from my point of view, it would probably be Stalin, because that's the only person I know who killed more than, shall we say, 15 million people.
There was more than Stalin.
I don't know much about history to know who Wissemer is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, one second. I'm going to respond to Alicia, then I'm going to let you go on Wissemer. Alicia, Pol Pot was a terrible person, but he only killed a few million, so he doesn't show up. Okay, sorry, go on.
Richimer was the man who was single-handedly responsible for the fall of the Western Roman Empire.
Really?
He was a warlord. I forget which tribe. He managed to achieve great renown, and essentially he created a sort of kingdom of Italy that still called itself the Western Roman Empire. He still had a puppet emperor to control, and then he would kill his puppet emperor and get a new puppet whenever they tried to, exert too much control themselves. But he assassinated many he assassinated many Roman nobles and essentially paved the way for the destruction of the empire as a whole. And writers often talk about his horrible moral character as well. But the thing is, I was half joking when I was mentioning, but
Well-
he was I don't think he was the most evil man in history. It was just I was referencing something.
Well, I had never heard of him, so that's why I asked.
Well, he sounds Machiavellian.
Well,
He was
St.
Machiavellian.
St. Clair, this is actually something that I'd never want to get in a debate with you.
Yeah, he
But-
was Machiavellian.
Who is the
over
most
1,000 years before Machiavelli? Sorry.
Well, no, here's something that I can say is I've always liked your content. You seem
Thank you.
very intelligent.
Thank you.
Who is the worst man in history in your opinion?
Who is the worst man in history, in my opinion?
For genocides and everything else.
Oh, gee, I don't know. The man who I think killed the most people or was responsible for the most deaths throughout history was Genghis Khan.
That was who came to mind when he asked, just off the top of my head. But I didn't actually
Whenever he would invade a country, he would attack all of the border towns, kill all the men, women, and children, and pile their skulls up in the center of town. That's pretty fucking ruthless. Nobody else did that, as far as I know. And nobody else did anything like that.
That is pretty fucked up.
And he was responsible for the deaths of, it's estimated, between 100 and 200 million people.
So how come he's Khanians or whatever the hell his followers would be?
Excuse
Are
me?
not the Nazis?
What are you talking? Who are not the Nazis?
What?
I don't know. Whoever idolizes Genghis Khan.
I don't think anybody idolizes Genghis Khan, except maybe, the people of Mongolia.
And
Today.
most of us who are
I
related to him.
kind of do. If somebody's that successful.
Yeah, he did succeed in creating the largest empire in human history by land area. He conquered more territory than any other man in history.
Both in the land and down under.
But like, here's something that throws us completely off topic is
Oh, please, we left that topic a long time ago.
why is Hitler such a bad person when he doesn't even reach the top 5 of?
It's difficult to say. It's still fresh in our memories ish. There are people still alive who suffered under the Nazis. I think it'll be the case for maybe a couple hundred years that this is considered one of the most evil regimes in history, and it is. But it is one of them. It's definitely
It's one of them, but it's not.
It's definitely top 10 worst. Can we say that the Nazi Germany top 10 worst?
No, I don't even
would
think
agree
that
with that.
Germany was top 10. I think that Germany was really just like the Henry Ford of genocide.
Who and you're wondering
It's a
who
Jew flattening machine.
Oh, if it's the Henry Ford of genocide, then that would make Genghis Khan Vanderbilt. Cornelius Vanderbilt.
I don't believe Genghis Khan built a Jew flattening machine.
Listen, I
don't.
don't mind talking about whether Hitler did or did not kill all the people he said to have been killed.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter, because in even the most discussed over, Hitler was responsible for about 15 million deaths, and that's not counting the 20 million Germans that already died during the Second World War.
That's literally only counting casualties, or not casualties.
I don't care whether Hitler did or did not cause the Holocaust, because in event, it's a non-issue. These people have been dead for such a long time that there is nothing we can do about this. But if we can talk about how Hitler was a bad guy because he killed, let's round it up to the next highest number. Hitler killed 20 million people. He's a terrible guy. Well, Stalin killed 45 million people. Nobody considers Stalin that bad. Hitler is worse than Stalin? Explain that to me.
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed.
That's kind of where I was getting at, Modwain. That exact point that you just said. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, how did you get the number 20 million? I thought it was
I'm sorry, Ren. You're very difficult to understand at the moment.
How did you get the number 20 million? I thought it was 12 million.
There is an issue of there is a difference in mode of death between communist genocides and the democides of Nazi Germany.
Yeah, starving to death.
We have plenty of stories of the treatment of Jews and other non-desirables in Central Europe, and it included torture, scientific experimentation, slavery. For the most part, in communist in communist Russia and China, most of the death was caused by starvation and intentional starvation. There was also quite a bit of execution as well. But maybe that's because maybe that's one of the reasons that the atrocities of Nazi Germany burn in our minds more, is because they're a lot more abnormal. They're considered more gruesome deaths.
I'm wondering whether they are stuck in our minds because we consider them more gruesome, or whether it is because we've been told by it a lot more.
Yeah, but it's also like something within our more recent history. Like there's Vlad and Taylor, but that's a long time ago. That's years.
It's not so much that they're in, because guess what? Hitler and Stalin were at the same time frame.
No, I was talking about like Vlad and Taylor and some of the most horrible people in history that's far predates Hitler. Some of the things like happened.
In all fairness, I'm going to interrupt this a little bit, because Vlad the Impaler, we are still being taught how he was a terrible man. But what a lot of people seem to have forgotten is that Vlad impaled the people that came to basically
invade his country.
So he was fighting a defensive war.
He was fighting against the Turks. He was in control of a small kingdom that was on basically the border between the Turkish Empire and the Eastern Christian world, basically.
Modwain, I didn't learn anything about Vlad the Impaler when I was in school.
Well, here's a question that I have. I have my daughters that are now going through elementary school. My oldest is enough that she is learning about World War II. I have a serious issue because what she is learning is World War II is all about race and we got to kill the Jews. Although the first concentration camp wasn't even found out about until I think it was 41 or 42. Now, if her great-great-granddad went to war in 39, why did he go to war in 39 if it's not something that was found out about until the 40s?
This is the point. Oh, sorry.
The reasons behind World War II are twofold, at least from the standpoint of Nazi Germany.
They had zero to do with racism, or very small percentile.
The first and main reason, the overall reason, is economic situation. Germany's currency was horribly devalued by the time Hitler was elected because of the treaty that ended World War I, forced them to pay money that they
Versailles.
it forced them to pay reparations that they could never afford, and so the German mark became so devalued that It was actually worth more as toilet paper than as money.
There were kids who were using them as building blocks in the street.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that.
They were in our textbooks. It was actually pretty cool.
And so there was the issue of vengeance for being treated so horribly by the Treaty of Versailles. That was the government's reason for declaring war. The people's reasons, I think, had a lot more to do with racism. I think that the government did as much as it could to stir up racist.
Wait a minute.
But wait a second. I'm going to come back a little bit, St. Clair, to what you said a moment ago, but it also has to do with something Father said, because the question was why the Hitler is considered really worse than Stalin, and the Father raised issue of education. And the thing is that when I speak to people, for example, from UK, and I'm talking about people who just went through the education system, but they are not specially interested in history. So they just, took the class, had to do what they have to do, done. When I'm telling them that there was a period in a history when a Russian family would choose the youngest child to eat to survive, they really have no freaking idea what I'm talking about. And the thing is that me being from Poland, I think the issue is that Poland being a communistic country, there was no sense really lying too much about the communist and the history at that point when we just broke from the communists. I mean, obviously my mother didn't learn about Stalin, the things I've learned, but when I was, for example, going through school, that was so fresh, I think they didn't dare to tell us the truth. And that's the thing, we are not being told the truth, and whatever narrative is being pushed for the society to believe in, we just change the history and we teach different things, and that's the problem. That's how you hear, that's how a swastika is forbidden and hammer and sickle isn't, and that's how you, Father, saying that, my children are learning that there was only race behind the Second World War. So,
well, here's the thing: is I don't think the hammer and sickle should be forbidden. I don't think the swastika should be forbidden. I do think that my kids could beat the shit out of somebody wearing a hammer and sickle.
my point was
Believe that my kids should be allowed to beat the shit out of somebody wearing the swastika.
My point is,
you should also
if one is not allowed, why is the other one allowed?
Then you should also believe that people who claim others are Nazis should be able to punch them just because they think they're Nazis.
Oh no, I think that my kids should be fucking allowed to get beat because they adorn the maple leaf. But I believe that my kids are a lot stronger than those little fucking libtard pussies.
No, what I'm saying is if you think your kids are allowed to punch people who are wearing a swastika or a hammer and sickle, you think that's okay, then you're just as okay with people in Antifa punching people just because they think they're Nazis or say they're Nazis. You should have no moral drawing there, otherwise you're virtue signaling.
And this is why I wanted to talk about how can we prevent violence, because this is what happens. If you're going to say, well, it's bad on this case, but it's not bad on the other one, then you are not preventing violence, you're creating escapes. You're basically saying, well, violence is okay here. It's not okay there, but it's okay here. And once you start doing that, I mean, this is not even a slippery slope. It's a cliff.
No, legitimate question. What are you going to do if your daughter comes back to you one day and says, hey, Dad, I punched a Nazi? And you're going to ask her, was he wearing a swastika? And she says, no, but these other kids said he was a Nazi. What are you going to do?
I'm going to punish her.
Not you, Futter. I know what you're going to do.
I'm going to slap my fucking kid upside the head and say, are you fucking dumb?
Well, I mean, then you should apply the same level of logic to if they just happen to be wearing a swastika or if they just happen to be wearing a hammer and sickle. God forbid these kids these days think it's edgy.
Oh, hammer and sickle is completely different than a swastika.
But you just said not even 5 minutes ago that you think your kids should be able to punch people with hammers and sickles.
Okay, it might have been a little bit facetious in saying that, but I don't disagree.
Okay.
You know what? my family came to North America back in like the good old days when North America was scalping Indians.
Okay.
Okay. Before we go into that one, do you know the fact that when the first Europeans came to America, they had to fight to stay there?
Look, can we not play a game of whose theoretical oppressed dick is bigger?
No, this is the point. The question is not whose theoretical dick is bigger. You're correct on that one. The question is, what can we do to prevent violence, and how far should we go? Because if we, and this is why I brought it as broad as I did, because as soon as we start saying, well, but you can use violence in this case, but not in that case, then you're already starting to differentiate. You're basically discriminating who is allowed to use violence.
Well, how about people just follow the law?
Well, yeah, that would be the perfect
John,
situation.
I will admit that I lost the point.
Okay, I wasn't looking for that, but
I'm in the chat. John said, admit it, Futter, you lost that point.
oh, well, okay.
I have to come back to something Alicia said a moment ago. She said she considered Pol Pot one of the greatest killers, and I said, no, he didn't kill that many people. Then Alicia said something that I didn't respond to in the chat, so people didn't know that it being said. Alicia said, well, yeah, but Pol Pot killed a quarter of his people, which, in all fairness, is a very good point. I mean, yes, Stalin killed 50 million people, but that's a small percentage. Stalin 45, Mao 60, but again, small percentage. But to kill 1 in 4 people of your country, that's pretty gross. So yeah, I had to put this in here. It has nothing to do with the things that were just said. But it is a segue I'm going to use to bring back the main topic. What can we do to prevent violence? I think the only thing we can do to prevent violence is to recognize that it's there, and we have to be able to use violence to prevent violence.
I think that we should prevent violence by teaching people when it's necessary.
Indeed.
Not that it isn't.
No. Violence is something you shouldn't want to happen, but if you have to, you need to know how to use violence. And
I was taught growing up by everyone who wasn't my mom that you shouldn't be violent, and if someone's doing something to you, go tell an adult or something. And my mom was like, well, if they're causing you trouble by beating you down, beat their ass.
And this is a reason why I can beat up nobody.
Modwain, where'd he go?
One moment.
Butter, you might want to double check on that one, because I didn't back down from those fights.
No, where I'm saying this is like, you know what? That's an exact good representation to have, but
yeah.
But indeed, I mean, teaching our kids how to defend themselves, teaching our kids to play physical sports.
Teach them to channel their aggression. Teach them when violence is appropriate. Teach them that you should honestly take the same approach to this that people are starting to take to sex ed, or they should be taking to sex ed. And it's not you should never do it. It's be safe when you do it. Whereas with violence, it's not that you should never do it. It's know when it's appropriate and do so.
Yeah, no, I agree. 100%.
Don't make me cringe when you say that.
Why does it make you cringe, though?
Because he's Canadian. It's his French in him.
I don't got fucking French in me. You know what? My old man taught me there is at least one nigger in the woodpile. He never taught me there is a Frenchman. Wow.
That didn't take long.
Wow.
Anyway, no, but seriously.
I
think
you know what? When should fuck, go next topic.
I think Feather's had a little Frenchman in him recently.
Fuck you.
Are you jealous, Saint?
I don't know. I think
Very funny.
Saint might be a little jealous.
Okay, but if I look at the chat and if I listen to, well, ramblings mostly, but yeah, the rest of us too, teaching our children how not only to deal with violence but also when to use violence is actually the only thing we can do to prevent violence.
Yeah, I believe that we could merge many of ramblings ideas. You know, it's kind of a lot like we could teach kids about self-defense, but we could also get them involved with football and wrestling so that they could let their aggression out in healthy ways, or get them to like take you know, just get them involved in contact sports and whatnot so that they can let their aggression out, you know, in a more healthier way. But if they need self-defense, they would also have it.
Exactly.
Solving skills too.
And you know, one of the biggest issues. This actually goes back to something that Modwain said in a few different streams, but this is one that this is one of the things that he said that I've latched onto, is that we repress anything that isn't feminine in society, in a sense. You don't want boys to be boys. You want them to be not boys.
The sports entertainment industry is more profitable than it's ever been. What are you talking about?
I can understand where nobody is coming from when they say that society doesn't want boys to be boys. They want society for boys to be girls. It's because men and women are very different. I mean, you know, men have more testosterone in them. Women have more estrogen in them. Men and women are just very different. Like little boys would be more interested in wrestling and fighting than little girls. Little girls would want to dress up and be princess.
I definitely see at our school, at our schools when I was working with the kids years ago. So I was bringing kids to school, like to a basic school, and I've seen one thing, that everything goes around to, well, change the boys the way so that girls will be happier and protected, and so that it will be easier, because it's easier to have a group of girls coloring in books and doing nasty, nice stuff, and every time the boys getting rowdy and getting climb the tree and doing whatever they want to do, it basically also poses difficulties to the teachers. And I've seen it even back then, that teachers want to run the group so that it's easier for them. And basically it's also the thing, and I actually witnessed that when the kid is coming home with a blue spot because, I don't know, he was climbing something and he fell, parents can get so already aggressive that the teachers don't want to deal with it. Like, they don't even go to ask how it happened, could it be prevented, and how it happened. They actually, I've seen mostly mothers, I think, attacking parents that school should be safe, and my kid comes with a blue eye or something. And I'm not saying, I also don't try to say, like, let the kids do whatever the hell they want, and but the overprotective, and indeed the boys should not be boys.
When
boys should be boys.
When I was a kid, there was this trope that you would see on TV shows a lot, and it was the mom who couldn't get over the fact that her kids were going to school, right? She grows up, she raises her kids the first day of school, and they can't get over the fact that they're without their kids, right? And you have this overprotective idea where eventually the mom learns to accept that the kids are going to be out of their sight. They're going to grow up. This is what's going to happen. You need to learn to let them go. That's what the rule is. But nowadays, it's less, we don't let our kids go and we rush to school and start threatening lawsuits out the wazoo if something happens, because God forbid something happens on our watch and we can't be there to protect them, because God forbid our little angel stands on her own 2 feet.
Yeah, and the problem is also that women do tend to be overprotective, and so many times I hear, and I'm sick of that, and I'm now speaking seriously as a mother, I'm sick of that. When mothers are saying, I'm the mother and I know the best, what's the best is for my kid. This is actually not completely true. We are only a human. To be honest, I do not know what is the best for my son. I'm trying to choose the best thing that, when I'm dealing with certain situation, I'm trying to have the approach that seems the best, but I'm not sure. And mothers are also like unwilling to listen to other people, because we've been told as a woman that our instinct, we surely are know the best. I give you for example, because I think I fight it and I got over it, but I used to be, especially at the beginning as well, overprotective, because that's what my body tells me. And you can ask Maud, sometimes I just wouldn't know if I'm being overprotective or am I right. And I would ask Maud, I said, look what he's doing, and I'm not sure, should I allow him to do that? Because, well, maybe I'm overprotective, but I just want to, stop him from doing that. And sometimes Maud would say, no, actually, let's don't do it. But often he said, yeah, let him listen. This what can happen, not that bad. Let him do this. And then against my will, I just sat there on a chair and I said, oh my God. But okay, I did allow him to do that. And to be honest, now I'm got used to that. So I'm really easy going in a lot of situations. And a few days ago, they were at the sort of the gym when they were showing parents, and he was there, the youngest one in the small group, and the parents were surprised how great he's climbing and how great balance he already has at this age. They were like, wow, really? And I think, yeah, but it's probably because we allow him so many things to do.
Well, that's natural, and I would even argue that that's probably
freedom.
fine. But the problem is that no one learns to let go.
Yeah, because what I was trying to say is that we basically deem to say, no, the mother knows the best, and I have a feeling that it's only I kind of lost what I wanted to say.
The mother knows a lot, but she can always learn more.
Yes, and I think that the insight of the father is just as important, because to me, sometimes I say to Maud, like, no, okay, you want to allow him to that, but this is where I say no, because this is what I see. And I do think women at seeing certain consequence in what the kid is doing in certain situations can be actually better. But at the same time, that the way that we try to overprotect our children, you need to also listen to the father.
It's no secret, I would think, that the best kids usually come from two-person households.
Unfortunately, like, there are a lot of single mothers in America. Like, many fathers can't see their kids anymore. But anyway, it's kind of like, what do we do about overprotective mothers? Because I don't see a solution to that. Like, oh my goodness, my kid, he got a black eye, and it's all the school's fault. And I want to sue the school because my little child has a black eye. I don't know what to do. I can't think of a solution for overprotective mothers.
I had to go pee. I'm back now, but I got something fucking to say. Short story. This has nothing to do with like you. Modwain's still friend, and he can attest to my thing. Mother does not always know best, and anyone that says that I'm done. No.
That's what I basically said.
Yep, that's what we all said.
Oh,
I said I actually said I'm sick of that women saying I'm a mother and I know the best. And when I used to say that when we didn't have a chat, I always get the argument like, you will see when you have your own kid. And I only actually see when I have my own kids to be stronger in all those things when I thought years ago that I'm stronger in that. And also that I don't know everything, and mothers don't know everything. We have most of us have a great instinct and the understanding of a kid and everything, although it's not to say that fathers don't. But I absolutely don't know everything. I question myself on a regular basis what to do and how to really react with my son. And not all the reactions I actually, that seemed the best at the moment. Later, when I'm actually thinking about it, I'm not always happy with myself how I reacted.
Yeah, no, sorry. I only caught a couple words of that. and I was going pee.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
You should have listened.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk again.
Yay!
Considering the time, I am going to put an end.
I thought he was going to talk again.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. No, he is going to talk, not just in the fucking stream.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my microphone was turned off.
Rumblings.
Fucking hell. I am going to hit you. I'm sick, I will hit you.
I hope it's long enough to reach to America, mate. Good luck with that.
As long as you got a good passport.
You have no idea how long my stick is.
Oh, kinky.
Although I have to say, if you said, "Hey, I'm coming to Canada," I got no reason other than hit this YouTuber. I had to look to Justin Trudeau and slap him because he'll probably be allowed in.
That would be the only reason anyone would go to Canada.
What, to slap Justin?
Oh, fuck off!
No, to slap butter.
Oh, right, okay. Anyway, no. I'm going to call an end. We're going to wind down. We did have a great talk. I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank the people in the chat for being here. Now, we're not gone yet, so don't just log off. I do like the fact that we did have a good talk, and yes, okay, we started to talk about guns, but fortunately, we stopped talking about guns because guns are not the only problem. And I'm glad to see that we did recognize a lot of things, and it's difficult to find a solution because the thing
Maybe
is,
we don't have a real problem.
Oh, we have a real problem, but the problem isn't violence. The problem is how we react to it. And then it went silent.
Yeah, no, I didn't have anything to say to disagree with that. Like that's a bonus. You won that one.
If you don't disagree, there is nothing wrong with agreeing.
Go.
Anyway, so I was actually going to say we're going to slowly wind down. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Is there anything you guys want to say on this topic?
On the topic, I don't think we have.
Oh my God. You did it before I could.
No. I'm sorry, Father, but you're silenced. You have to open your microphone yourself. But I had to do it because, well, it was done to me. Okay, let's not do this again. This is silly.
Oh, fuck. What
Yeah,
I had to say was we don't have a fucking problem in this world with violence. My daughter's gone. You can't use that as an excuse next time.
No, it wasn't even because of your daughter. It was just me being silly, mate. It happened to me, so I was going to do it to someone else.
It's the thing of like earlier ramblings. Your convo with your daughter was cutting off Modwain, futter.
Yeah.
And my reply,
earlier.
no worries. I was reaching for the mute button already.
Oh, right. Anyway.
It happens. Whatever.
But yeah, no, okay. So you think we don't have a problem with violence?
I don't think we do.
Okay.
Even with gun violence, I think there's a lot that can be done. I'm looking at starting my Dune channel within the next 2 weeks. I hope this is still a really hot topic because it's something I'm passionate about, but I don't think that we can really control the gun violence in North America without infringing on other people's rights. It's kind of like I could have something mean to you to say, Modwain, since we don't have guns, I could say something mean to you. Is that violence? Should that be censored? Or should you be allowed a rebuttal to that and just get on with your life?
You mean is it violence to say something mean?
Well, I can't think of anything mean to say to him, but I'm sure give me a week. I can figure something out.
It takes a Canadian a week to think of something mean to say.
Well, Modwain's a friend. I can say something mean to you within the next 5 minutes. Nobody.
Modwain is a friend, but I can say something mean to him because he's freaking Santa Claus.
Well, no, that's not really mean. Being called Santa Claus, you know what? I'm hoping by next Christmas I got a fucking beard that rivals his.
Well, that's because
How's that mean?
That's because you're a Canadian with beard envy.
By the
Well,
way,
I
go
mean,
fuck yourself, nobody.
Shoots and scores.
Don't shave. That'll probably do the trick. Anyway,
that means I have to cancel my appointment tomorrow.
what, you're going to the barber?
Well, I am, but even if I have an appointment for 1 o'clock and go out for a cigarette at 1:15, I'm going to be there till 3.
It's spring. All Canadians shave their beard because winter's over.
I wouldn't. Anyway, anyone else have
Hey, at least Canadians can kick the
topic?
fuck out of you and burn your White House down.
Let's not go there again. Let anyone else have something to say on the topic?
We love you,
No.
Modwain.
What was the topic?
Canada's full of violent psychopaths.
Rin, St. Clair?
No, I don't think I have anything to say.
Okay.
Can we talk about how
Wait a second, Rin
scared
wanted-
off my girlfriend?
Father, Rin wanted to say something. Let Rin.
Oh, sorry.
I thought it was me neither.
I'm sorry, what did you
Mean.
say?
Have
I
fun.
said, like after St. Clair said that I have nothing to say, I
Ah.
added me neither.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to end the stream. I mean, yes, we didn't solve the problem. I didn't expect we would. But we did have a good talk about it. And I hope people will go away with different ideas. Maybe.
I think people just went away confused.
Well, that's also good because being confused means that you're no longer stuck in your dogma, in your narrative. I mean, if you have your own dogma, if you have your own narrative, you're not confused because you know what to believe. If you're confused now, then at least you're thinking about it. See, I'm positive. Anyway, anyone want to say anything to end the stream, to shield themselves or whatever? Father?
Yeah, I'm Futternut. Don't sub to that channel. Go to Canuck Comments whenever you see it live. That will be the new channel that actually deals with real shit. And yeah, and by the way, I saw Sinclair shave his legs live on stream.
Okay. Rin, you want to say something?
It's been Rena Michaelis, and I usually have a new video out for people every single week. So please check out my channel. And I have I might be able to do a live stream with 666 Hammer 666 next month. It might happen. No promises.
Oh, that would be cool. Say hi to him from me. St. Clair, you got something, mate?
Yeah, I am going to start doing YouTube again. I have an interest in history, and my videos will probably have to do with classical and medieval history for the moment, because that's what my interest is at the moment.
Oh,
Thank
cool. I really look forward to it. I
You
really
need
look
to
forward
drop
to it.
me. You needed to drop me a link for that over Twitter because I am down to watch some of that.
All right then, cool.
Well, I mean, your slavery series was particularly great. I really wish it was.
I will remake it, and I will finish it.
I didn't really like his slavery thing, but I've always liked his live stream reaction.
No, I love the slavery series as well. It was really good. And I'm not even saying that because if I understood it correctly, part of the reason why you made that slavery stream. Can you tell us that?
The reason why I decided to make those videos is because there seems to be confusion and disagreement as to what actually happened, how the people were treated, and what the sequence of events was that created the issue of slavery in the first place in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
For example, most people don't know that slavery was made illegal on the English mainland in the early 1100s, and that when the slave trade was at its peak, it was still illegal to keep a slave on the English mainland.
Yep.
They exported it. They exported it to their colonies, and it was the colonies that were mostly in control of the situation. The people who were mostly in control of the situation were capitalists, people who were trying to make money. It was a business primarily.
What's wrong with capitalists?
That is a discussion that I do not want to have right now, but I'm just going to preface it by saying I think nothing is wrong with them.
Oh, I'm not saying that capitalism. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with capitalists, but that capitalist business venture is the reason why the issue of American slavery was and to
another Modwain stream that will last 3 hours.
Yeah, no, we're not going to go there now. It's a great topic for another time. What's wrong with capitalism, and which systems can we enforce instead of it?
Didn't we do that like 6 months ago?
I can't remember. Probably.
I would like to ask St. Clair a question before we end the show. St. Clair, would you be going in depth into colonialism? I'd like to learn more about that.
I'm sorry, I can't understand what you're saying.
Your microphone is really bad today, Rin.
Mm-hmm.
You're difficult to understand.
She has to take it out of the fishbowl.
Would you, St. Clair, would you be going in depth into colonialism?
Will I be making videos about colonialism? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, if people have an interest in it.
I'm interested.
I do.
All right. Well, send me a DM on Twitter. Ask me what you want me to make, and I'll see what I can do.
I would like you to see make videos on colonialism.
Modwain, Code Connection actually has idea for our next video for you. For that matter, war exists there's a difference between capitalists and capitalism.
Guys, this is a discussion for a different stream.
Yeah. Okay, this is for after stream. We can talk about this in a moment. Nobody, do you want to say something before I'm going to say bye?
Subscribe to my channel. Canada sucks.
Yeah, fuck the USA.
Fuck us right in our bigger military asshole.
Fuck you right in the AR-15.
You mean that gun that defends your country because you're a hat?
Wait a second. The AR-15 doesn't defend anyone. It's not a military-grade weapon.
Come on, we all want 223 or 223 weapons to fucking defend our country, don't we?
Look, it doesn't matter. Canada sucks.
Shut the fuck up.
Enough of this. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. Thank you in the chat for participating. Sorry that I didn't spend more time addressing the things that were being said in the chat. I usually try to be more attentive. It was a great topic. I really do hope that people will come away with, if not new ideas, then at least new questions. Anyway, thank you everyone for coming, and see you all next week.